working with a group of people to pour our hearts, to risk our lives to save a place, and then to go into a broader community and tell that story. Sometimes with my words, sometimes in writing, sometimes with video, sometimes other people did it with music, you know? So we would go somewhere that was under threat. We'd work our best. Sometimes we'd save it, sometimes we wouldn't. And then we would come out and say, here's what happened. Here's what happened. Does that inspire you? Does it worry you? Does it make you want to give money? Does it make you want to change the way you're living? Does it make you want to change the way you vote? Does it make you want to like engage in the system differently? Does it make you want to disengage from the system that you're currently engaged with? And hopefully then something was spreading, something was growing. And I think, you know, what we all felt was that was spreading. And it spread greatly. And when they decided to take the largest meeting of world leaders and try to impose unelected world government in the form of the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and they decided to come to what amounted to our backyard, the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, in November of 1999, they had no idea what they were doing, but we had an idea what we're doing. And we took the tactics that we learned from the forest and we put them on the streets of Seattle, and we literally kept them, the most powerful people in the world, from getting together and talking. And what that did was it created a sense of power for the powerless. It created a sense of ability to make change from people that had always felt completely disempowered. And so no longer were the powers that be of the world allowed to gather in the green room, make the decisions, and then come out and feed it to the developing world and say, sign here or else. Suddenly, the Brazils and the Chinas and the Indias of the world said, we have power. Like those people in the streets, we have power. I mean, that's the story I understand that what happened. And those meetings in Seattle collapsed, and they took themselves off to Qatar 2 years later and made a plan. They went to Cancun 2 years after that and got nothing done. And now they're about to meet in Taiwan. And I hope that not much is going to happen there. And so suddenly we were like, wow. You know, we're like acting on a world stage now with these tactics of direct action. It's like a tremendous sense of empowerment. And, you know, frankly, this has been going on around the world for a long time. In Europe, these sorts of meetings have been, you know, opposed vigorously. But I think the Europeans, they gained energy from what we did in the United States, because suddenly it was like, wow, even the Yanks are doing this. You know, it suddenly was like, wow, even Americans are standing up, locking arms, throwing rocks. I mean, they're stopping it even in America. And so the energy built. It built into Quebec with the FTAA meetings, and it built after that to Genoa in 2001, where the President of the United States of America slept on a ship in the Adriatic Sea because he was afraid to sleep in the city, because there were millions of people in the streets saying, we will not bow down to these so-called elected leaders running the world for us. And then September 11th, 2001, and suddenly the world was different. Or the world was more the same than it ever had been before, because suddenly fear once again became the dominant force, and fear is the enemy of empowerment. And a lot of people decided that they needed to be quiet for a while and sit back and see what happened. And it has all been different in the last 4 years since then. Not that there aren't people continuing to stand up, not that there haven't been a lot of people that have continued to try to do this, but the momentum, the air just right out of something that until that point had really been growing. So we find ourselves now in a world where the blinders are off. Fascism shows its ugly face in this country, and people vote for 4 more years of it. Or maybe they don't vote. Maybe they think they vote, and little machines in faraway rooms count a different number. I don't believe we have free and fair elections, and we haven't had for a long time, but certainly something's getting weirder and weirder. My country's in favor of torture. We pay news media within this country. We pay news media outside this country to tell our stories. We support regimes that engage in torture, and we are proud of it. The president announces that he might veto the only bill he's ever vetoed, a defense authorization bill, if it doesn't include torture. The architect of the torture memos becomes the attorney general, the highest law enforcement officer in the land. And so all this is happening, and Americans, I think, are probably about 50% asleep. Probably about 25% say, it's not so good for most people, but it's good for me. And maybe about 25% are awake, and they say to themselves, well, what can I do? What can I do? And that's the game that we all, not the game, it's not a game. I mean, that's the puzzle that we all try to solve. What could I possibly do that can meet the magnitude of what's happening in the world with a similar response from my own self that doesn't feel trivial? War in Iraq, the rollback of civil liberties, climate change, accelerating, like before our very eyes, predictions that were supposed to happen 20 years ago, coming true now. And we look back and we say, how could anything I do not appear trivial compared to that? And it's going to take some people fundamentally understanding the basis of how illegitimate authority and illegitimate power work, and throwing themselves fully into it and seeing whether or not a bunch of people are willing to follow. It's only a matter of time before it gets bad enough that a lot of people will. The crisis is already happening in many parts of the world. People are standing up there and making a difference. Latin America is no longer solidly in the pocket of the United States of America, which of course the people never were, but the leadership was for a long time. So America suddenly has a threat on its back door. When will the people of this country understand? I don't know.